Hey folks, Temple here and welcome to another list video. This will probably be my last video of the listings. But anyway, as you recall 2 weeks ago, I did a video called My Favorite Top 10 Games of All Time. Well, today I'm making a follow-up on that, which is my favorite top 5 Final Fantasy games of all time. Now, as many of you know, I love the JRPG scene and I do love myself a good Final Fantasy game. And today I'm going to be doing the Final Fantasy, run. I'll be giving you my view on the top 5 of my favorite Final Fantasy games of all time. Now, it's the same as the previous list, it's my opinion, and if you don't like it, that's fine. You can always, put your thoughts in the comments, what you think is the top 5 best, Final Fantasy games. So anyway, folks, let's dive into this, whole listings and see which ones were my favorites and which were not. So let's get to it. Number 5, Final Fantasy XII. Now, Final Fantasy XII to me it had a lot to live up to, considering, 10, 8, 9, 7. But I felt that it did okay, it stood on its own feet, and it did have a very visual, stunning effects. I mean, not as 15, but the effects were stunning, the story was alright. I mean, some of the characters, yeah, I wasn't too fond of, but I did like the whole story and the whole backdrop of, there's like wars breaking out and you're caught right in the middle of like two massive empires clashing. And also the fact this was one of the few games that, had the ability where from the summoner, everyone could, have a, one of those guardian beasts, because 8 had that before, and so did 7, but then it was, phased out, left for summoners. But now they brought it back, and it was kind of a welcome sight. And also the fact that you can become a sky pirate, now that was fun. And also, some of the enemies were tough. They were not easy to beat, and you had to literally think on your feet how you're going to fight. I mean, this was, I think, the first game where they, scrapped the turn-based system, but for better or for worse. But yeah, Final Fantasy XII was not a bad game, and it was quite enjoyable. So let's move on to number 4. Number 4, Final Fantasy VIII. Now, this game got me into the whole Final Fantasy, genre. So this does have a special place in my heart. It's, the very thing that got me into the RPG and, the whole Final Fantasy series. And I have to admit, I mean, when you look at the others, yes, it's not the greatest. I mean, you gotta admit, it had to live up to number 7. Because a lot of people say number 7 was, the best. But I'm not totally convinced by that. But yeah, number 8 was a decent game. I mean, the GF system was quite unique thing where you could, choose, like pick and choose which, guardian force would go to each character, and the story was pretty good. But there's one other thing this game has in spades. It also has a lot of theories. I mean, the game does not give you a concrete theory on certain, points and topics. And this is the one good thing about this game. Even today, we're still, debating on certain theories, like, is, Ultimisi, Renona in a different universe, or is Squall dead? It was a lot of things that thing. I mean, if it spoiled you, no, don't worry, you're not missing much. And also, the introduction of the Gunblade. I always loved the Gunblade. It's one of my favorite weapons. And it really showed also time travel as well, like between the past, the present, and the future. It was all mingling. It was quite an interesting story. It was very deep. I mean, fair enough, it didn't live up to like a lot of people's expectations, but I felt if you ditch 7's, rise to power, I would say this game was decent on its own. It was quite good. I mean, you could, make your own magics, powers, abilities. I mean, you had to create your characters, but I do have to admit the system was a bit, troublesome, because, if the lower your level, the lower the monsters are, but the higher you get, the stronger they get. So, yeah, it was kind of a balancing that you had to, avoid, doing ridiculous, leveling up to, having to, be too low level to deal with certain stuff. But anyway, folks, let's move on to number 3. Number 3, Final Fantasy 15. Now we're bringing it to a newer, iteration of the genre. The Final Fantasy 15 had a lot to live up, because at the time, Final Fantasy 14 was the best, online game, and its previous, single-player games have hit the wayside quite a bit. So Final Fantasy 15 had a lot to live up to, and by God, after such a long development cycle, it was well worth the wait. I mean, the combat system was fluid, the battles were good, the story was decent, and you felt like you were on a journey. You were literally on a journey of discovery, a journey of righteousness, and a journey of literally, fixing the wrongs to right. And you also had to show, your character development from being like a whiny brat to a respectable leader. You really had to go through a journey, and it was really, really good. And also, each of the characters that are with your main character, the companions have all, bounce off each other. You've got the tough, silent, brutish big guy, you've got like the the Joker, the Lapo, and you've got Mr. Sensible. So basically, each one of these characters had their own unique traits and abilities, and also you had a lot of side quests, bringing back the side quests we all love, where you had to go hunting, looking for your own food, buy your own food, chocobo racing, chocobo riding, using your car, designing your car, changing your car. I mean, yeah, it's a lot about the car, but it's worth it. And also, the visuals are stunning, as well as the musical score. The musical score is pretty good, one of the best, I would say. But that's it for Final Fantasy 15's praises. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2, Final Fantasy X. Now, this game has also another special place in my heart, as this game was the very game that made me want to buy a PS2. Final Fantasy X series was a breakaway from its previous, predecessors with the 3D graphics, the animated, full style, and also it was the first time we ever had voice actors. So this game really had a lot of stuff, and as you can see from this little trailer here, you got like the showing of the old game and the new remaster, which I'm happy to see they remastered the game, making it more polished and clean compared to the PS2 graphics. But what Final Fantasy X separated from the others was it felt like a traditional Final Fantasy, where you were more along the lines of going through the story, and each of your party had a class system. I mean, you had like the Black Mage, the Summoner, the White Mage, the Warrior, the Thief, the Rogue. You had a lot of diversities, and also you wouldn't stick with the simple quests. You also had other side quests to get certain powerful beings, powerful weapons, and also when you go back to certain places, you were forced to face off against your own people, but you would also face off against greater challenges. Also, the story and the music was pretty good, and also I do like the Guardian Beasts in this game. The Guardian Beasts look phenomenal, and also it had one of the best love stories that we've seen, with whole Yuna and Titus. I mean, okay, Titus, nobody liked him, but the story scene was good. It was a good love story, and also the showing of the enemy. I mean, Seymour was a strong villain. He was a villain you had to prepare to fight, and he was not going to go down easy. And also it between the boundaries of religion and life and death. I mean, it showed a lot about religion, how religion could dominate a whole faction of universe. The whole universe of Spira, but also it showed that there are other ways of dealing with it, and how certain things that are meant to be good can be corrupted. But anyway, folks, let's dive into number 1. And number 1, Final Fantasy IX. Now this one is one of my favorites. This was a proper throwback to the Final Fantasies of old, where you had like these unique characters and different species you were working with, like rat people and monkey men and all that. And what was great about Final Fantasy IX as well is the storytelling. It was a great storytelling, and also each character was not wasted. I mean, in most games you wouldn't focus on a character, you would always just like have a little snippet, but in this game most of the main cast had their own little arcs, quirks, and little slice of what was going on in their lives, where they would have to deal with tragedies and several bits of misfortune, even to the point where they would have to question their very own existence on how life tricked them. And also I liked as well the whole excuse me, the whole adventure of it all, where you saw the feelings, you felt for most of these characters. Even some of the baddies you had a sympathetic feeling for, as they were like mistreated. You would think that they were sympathetic baddies. They weren't totally bad. They were either manipulated, or you felt so sorry for them. And this game to me felt like a refreshing change and a refreshing breeze to the whole series, where I enjoyed every minute of it. And it's one of the few games I enjoyed the most. But anyway, folks, that's the end of the the whole list. I hope you like the list. If you like it or not, please leave in the comment which one's your top 5 favorite Final Fantasy games, and I'll see you in the next video. I'll catch you later.